Welcome to Stream of Thoughts. We have this third chapter of this podcast that we have, and we have here with us Milja Suihko, a very old friend of mine. Welcome, Milja, to the Stream of Thoughts. That's our podcast name. I would like, Milja, you to introduce yourself and what are your plans, what are your immediate plans, and why you decided to come into politics.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you for the invitation. It's very nice to be able to talk with you on one of my favorite subjects. So my name is Milja Suihko, and I'm running to the Helsinki City Council from the Greens Party. And my themes, as Hassan mentioned, is the internationality and inclusivity of the city of Helsinki. Also, circular economy, mostly attached to the sustainable development of the city. And third point is the right to housing. And I want to kind of make the point visible that not every issues concerned in housing and people without a place to live is because of some social issues or issues with substances, for example. There are also a lot of young people, a lot of women from abusive relationships or whatsoever. So kind of diversifying that discussion. But today we're going to talk about the inclusivity matter. My background is in international relations from the Tampere University, and that's where I met Hassan. I was the vice chair of the United Nations Youth Association of Finland, and Hassan was later working on the Tampere Association of United Nations Youth. So that's our link. And I've always wanted to make a difference, make a positive difference. And I have quite excessive background from different organizations. But I felt like going into city politics, I've now lived in Helsinki for 2.5 years, would be next step to really make a difference locally where I live and where I want to build a better city for many different kind of people, not only for certain type, just as an introduction.
Yeah, actually, as an immigrant living here for 6 years, it's been 6 years now. I moved in 2014, so it's been a long time. Your agenda, first of all, I would like to appreciate you that you want to make some difference. And I truly believe, since I know you, I truly believe that you can. And that's a very good motive of you that you decided to come into politics to make some difference and to include something in your agenda about the groups that are not sometimes not well taken into the limelight. So but since as an immigrant, we are people who come here, who study and work and apply for visa, and we are busy in these kind of things, so that how we have to extend our visa, how we have to meet the income requirement for securing a visa. We have some own problems, but since many people don't know what this city council election means to an immigrant, and how they can vote, if, for example, if an immigrant has come to Finland, who is eligible for voting, and what this city council can do for you, for the Helsinki people specifically. If we are talking, you're contesting for the Helsinki City Council election. So what Helsinki City Council can normally do? So if you can if you can describe in a layman language.
Yeah, of course. So the Helsinki City Council and all city and communal councils are elected every 4th year. The next time it will be the 18th of April and that's the main voting date. There will be pre-voting dates before that. In the communal parliament, there is 85 seats. Nowadays, the Green is the second biggest party in the city council, with 21 seats, and our goal naturally is to become the biggest this spring. So that's our goal, and that would mean that we would also have a Green mayor who would lead the work of the city. For example, the city council decides on the strategy for the city. It decides on the services that city is providing. According to law, for example, there are kindergarten, cultural and youth services. There is libraries, environmental planning, some questions on housing, and water and energy manufacturing, for example. So it's like wide sphere of different things that you are infected by everyday life that you see, that you may not always think separately, but there are so many things every day in our lives that are planned or created by the communal city councils.
So if we say that, if we simplify it, that day-to-day matters of the life and the decisions we take, for example, sending your kid to a kindergarten, or finding a job, something like creating more jobs for international people, or these are the matters that are looked over by the city council. So is that right if we say this?
Yeah, basically in the country level, the parliament is deciding on the big scene and the big kind of infrastructure, but all the local decisions are made in the city councils and communal councils.
All right. Yeah, so that's a pretty important thing in whole structure of the government, of the decision-making processes. And Milja, if a person can you just tell that what is the eligibility for a person to vote in this city elections?
Basically, in the city council elections or communal elections, you have the most diversified rights to vote. So it's not about nationality, it's about where you live. You have to be over 18 years old, either be a citizen of Finland or another member state of the European Union, and live in the municipality or city in question before the February 26th. However, you can also be from whichever another country, but then you have to have lived in that municipality or city, or in Finland in general, over 2 years before the 26th of February. And the 26th of February is 51 days before the primary voting day. So that is just that the information is accurate in every city kind of registry, that who is voting there, who is living where. So these two conditions, you have to live in the city or in the communal community or city before the 26th of February. And if you are from non-European Union member states, 2 years living in that city. And those who work for international organizations, it's enough to live in that city before the 26th. And voting itself, that's super easy. You just have to take passport or a driver license and go to the nearest pre-voting points. So if you wait until the 18th of April, you have to go to vote to that place where the paper says that you have to go to vote.
Okay.
But if you vote on the pre-voting days, you can go to anywhere. Basically, there are places in shopping malls, in stores, in libraries. Of course, there will be now some different safety measures because of the occurring pandemic situation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But still, the elections will be this spring in quite short time, actually, in 2.5 months.
Okay. All right. I think that's really you defined in a very well way that who can vote, who is eligible for voting. So I urge the listeners who are listening and who falls under this category, please go and vote if you want to make a difference in the city. If you want to see the person who is working for you, who wants to work for you, please go and vote and select him in the city council. So, Milja, that was some questions about how the city council works and who is eligible or not. But let's come to a very interesting topic now: international and inclusive Helsinki. So I was listening. So listeners, if you're listening to this podcast, or if you're watching to this podcast, Milja has another interesting Facebook live session. I will share the link of that session as well in my description of the YouTube video. So please go and listen to that as well if you want to know more about Milja and her agenda. But international and inclusive Helsinki, that seems very, catchy to an immigrant like me that have lived here and that knows Finland specifically. And if I talk about the immigrants, we all of us wants to live in a city where there are more opportunities, where there are less language barriers. So this international and inclusive Helsinki gives us a dream place to live. That makes Helsinki a dream place to live for us. So why did that come? Why this international and inclusive Helsinki came to your mind? And if you can define a little more about international and inclusive Helsinki, what does that mean, and what that will do for Helsinki, for what that will do for the Helsinki city comparable to what it is now?
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking about my themes, and I think that the first thing I wrote was internationality. So it came very naturally for me. I think partly it is because of my background in international relations and international affairs. I've worked with many international topics, and also with many international people. And I feel that that has always enriched my life quite a lot. So kind of understanding that what that can bring, and what added value it can bring also to an individual, makes me want to go to a bigger scale and think that how the whole city could work in more international and inclusive way. Because I also I did my master's in this peace mediation and conflict research masters, and it was an international program. So also there, kind of changing ideas on everyday basis with people from different backgrounds. The program was just so much better with that added element of internationality, that it has been natural part of my life, and it's part of my vision how we can make the cities and environments better.
Okay.
And what I would want to see would be all the information that people need to be accessible in multiple languages. I myself, I'm doing my whole campaign in two languages, in Finnish and English, to also wake up a bit people who don't know that they can even vote, people who usually are not involved in any politics, to make them aware that they have also space and they have part in the development of the city. So it starts with language politics, but it goes beyond that. It goes to the city culture, where there are different people from different backgrounds making their own life visible as well in the city, with different events, with different kind of, for example, shops, restaurants, to make the city even more versatile and lively, is what I feel that internationality could bring in a capital and in any city in Finland.
All right. So that is a very nice explanation, and we as foreigners, we will love to see Finland more international. And as you guys were discussing in your other video Facebook live event as well, that Finland is one of the most racist countries, and racism is not just an event that happens to you, it also affects your mental health. So being people more bearable towards international people, and international people becoming more inclusive in the society, that will bring a harmony, that would make Finland more prosperous, and that would be better for all of us, I think. So, but let's dig a bit deeper now. First start, as you said, language politics. So first start with the language. My question is that how far do you support English as a work language or Finnish as a work language? Do you have any preference?
That how I prefer it, or what was
like in your agenda? Do you think the language of the workspace, official language of the workspace, should be Finnish or should be English?
I think it has to be aligned with the enterprise's actions. I think that if an enterprise is working with international partners, or is trying to go to international markets, or is in international markets already, it just makes more sense to have people with diversified backgrounds. If you're working, for example, in somewhere in very local business, if you're working in, let's say, hospital or whatever, of course you need to know the language. But I think that in the company world, in the tech world, for example, there is so much space to enlarge the possibilities for foreigners. And I feel that there is still a bit of this attitude issue, that some enterprises might see that as a risk, even though it is an asset. Even based on some research, the more diversified your company employee base is, the better results you get. So we have the information, but there is still the barriers of some attitudes, of maybe being afraid that, okay, how will our customers respond, or how will our other already hired employers employees will. I myself, I'm doing think about the issue, but the fact is that in Finland people speak very well English. It's just about the attitude, that are you like willing to talk, are you willing to practice, are you willing to open up the culture, and also be willing to learn new things as an exchange.
Yeah, exactly. But because we use a term called educated laborers, people like us, like immigrants, we come to Finland. We start doing, let's say, masters or bachelors. We work for the odd jobs. We try to earn good enough income so we are able to extend our visa. And in this process, for example, in the daytime we go to university, in the evening time or night time when people do the work, these odd jobs to support themselves. In 2 years, we try to get work visa by doing these odd jobs. We don't find time to learn the language, which we think is essential for inclusion into the society. And after even doing the master's degree, or even these we are still busy with doing these odd jobs. People are like, I know many people who have been living here for maybe more than 10 years, but they have the degrees in their hand, but the degrees are of no use because they can't find inclusion. And when they go to the job search market, English, it's a pretty hard job to find a language that is to find a job that is based in English. So does your agenda includes, when you talk about inclusive Helsinki, international and inclusive Helsinki, does that include that removing the people, the educated people, from the odd jobs, and including them into the place where they should be? So what are your views about that, and what are your future plans about it?
Of course, in the longer term, working in a field which is not your field is both a waste of personal resources, and might start to feel not meaningful at one point. Of course, we have a huge interest. We should have huge interest to hire the people that we actually have educated. For example, in bachelor's or master's degree, that would be beneficial to us as a country and as cities.
Yeah.
If we would be able to keep that knowledge and that professionalism that we have helped to create, and to find those places. Of course, being not in your field kind of jobs is wider problem. Also, some and many Finnish speaking people have that issue as well at some part of their lives. But of course, the battles are even much greater with not
Speaking
speaking
Finnish.
speaking Finnish. Of course, the cities have some levels of power to also push different actors to go forward. In my opinion, for example, the city of Helsinki could support enterprises and actors that are already doing work for hiring people from foreign backgrounds and hiring people that do not speak Finnish that fluently. Yeah. There are many workplaces that speaking Finnish is required, even though it would not be required actually in the work. So it has to be based on the actual work tasks that you do. What are the demands for language skills in each of job opportunities? For example, the cities could positively lift up different actors and enterprises that are already doing this work. For example, having an annual prize for the best multicultural or international local company of the city. This kind of positive enforcement. And also in the strategy of the city, there is the need or the will to internationalize the city. And one of the objectives is to try to seduce this kind of knowing workforce from other countries. But I think that the cities should also pay attention to actually just keeping the know-how that we already have in the country before we go and try to get them. They won't stay if we can't offer the opportunities that highly educated young professionals have.
All right. So when you say about international and inclusive Helsinki, we can maybe expect in the future that there would be more jobs that would require English as an official language, and that is also one of the key factors for the inclusivity of the people to the society. So we can expect that, right?
Yes, yeah. Globalization has already happened, and even though there are some challenges that we now see in our surroundings, it's not stopping. We are more networked globally than we have ever been. When the pandemic will shift away, there will be again movement of not only ideas but also people, workforce. So it's time that also the Nordic countries deal with that fact and try to also be in that competition of this professional and highly skilled workforce. Because if people don't have the possibilities, then they go somewhere else in the end, and that's not what we want.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know many people who were very skilled people, and they were good in their field, but since they were not able to find the jobs in their respective field, so they decided to leave for some other countries because they didn't want to do any side jobs to support themselves. So I think that would be a big way, a better way to stop the brain drain if Finland keeps the educated people to themselves. So it would be quite an asset for Finland, I guess. So when we talk about the inclusivity, and if we have talked about these jobs and English language, and these are the good points that you as a city council member and your party will try to create more English speaking jobs or something like this, more inclusivity for the people. But I think as an immigrant, but when it comes to us, we should also show some responsibility, and it doesn't only depends on the government, on the city council or the state level things to incorporate us into the society. It also depends on us to become a member of the society. We need to work for that. So what do you think? Maybe that's not a very political question, or maybe that's just a general statement. What do you think? How much learning Finnish language is necessary in integration into the society? What do you suggest to the people listening to this? Should they learn language?
Of course, in the long term, the fact that you know language, whatever language, now we're talking about Finland and Finnish language, but wherever you live, of course, the understanding of the local language helps you to enjoy the country more. That's a fact. It helps you to integrate more to the cultural scene, to understanding people. Maybe even if you're very lucky to make Finnish friends. But I also believe that it should be possible to live and work here without learning the language. At least, of course, you can learn the basics. But learning new language, especially which is as demanding as Finnish is something that we can't expect from people on very short notice. Of course, with learning new skills, especially with learning languages, it is a lot about motivation. But then I feel that people who are searching for jobs, for example, they might feel that the level that they would require is so high that it feels impossible to try to jump
Exactly.
and to
Yeah.
work on the language on that level. So I think that there should be made a differentiation between the basics that will help you to go on with your everyday life and maybe to enjoy the country a bit more. And then there is the language of professional life. And on the sphere of professional life, if you are working on a company which is already international, you should not be forced to learn the language before you can get in. So of course it depends on persons, also individual future prospects. Is it are you staying in Finland for a few years? Are you staying in Finland for forever? Is that your wish? That also, of course, then has an influence on the motivation.
Yeah.
But maybe as a concluded point, of course, it will always help you to feel more like home. But
Yeah.
also, when we talk about internationality, we can't just expect people to assimilate themselves to the Finnish culture and language. Internationality for me means that there's also this free space for different languages and for different cultures. It's not about making everyone Finnish.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
drive for.
Yeah. 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 That's a good point, because I think a society should be open to seeing and accepting what is good in different cultures. I think cultures can coexist. If they can coexist, that's a very beautiful thing, and that makes a very nice and integrated society. I think we should not, if we say that I want to be Finnish, or if someone say, okay, you are acting like a Finnish now, or so an immigrant shouldn't try to be like a Finnish, or it shouldn't be like a very appreciating thing for him that you are Finnish now. You should be what you are. You should never forget your grounds, but you should celebrate what are the good things in the other culture, and you should try to tell them what are the good things in your culture as well. So I think making a coherent society in which you can celebrate each other differences, and we can try to live with each other, is the best example of a beautiful society. So yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, so if we move towards the accommodation, that was also one of your agenda of the election. You said house for everyone. So when you said home for everyone, there are, when if you're an immigrant, when you're going to apply for a home mortgage, you face certain limitations, like you should have a permanent residence, at least, if you want to have the mortgage money. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but so do you think that us being a city council member or a city council overall can look into this matter, or is it above the authority of the city council, or does it depends on the bank or everything? What are your views about it?
I what I know is that it's partly kind of decided by the banks of how they give mortgage in
Yeah.
overall. But I've
Yeah.
understood that there has to be some level, like few years of country residence
Yeah.
before you can apply for a house
Yeah.
loan
Yeah.
mortgage. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
That couple of years
Yeah.
is enough in a sense. Of course, if we go a few steps back and talk about housing in more general, of course,
Yeah.
not everyone has the means to even think about buying a house or
Yeah.
borrowing money to buy one.
Yeah.
Just in the basic level of searching for apartment in Helsinki, the situation is horrible. There are lines in all the places that you could
Yeah.
line up for an apartment. And
Yeah.
in the individual markets, especially with people with different name, different background, it is
Yeah.
hard to find a place. Of course, like the studios that are
Yeah.
affordable in Helsinki, they are very rare, and
Mm.
it's hard for anyone to
Yeah.
find affordable studio in the
Yeah.
city. So one thing that I'm concerned of is, of course, building enough in the city and
Yeah.
building enough to different needs,
Mm.
and building enough to people who don't have high level of income. Um,
So you're trying to
Also,
say the affordable housing in Helsinki.
yeah, that's a
Mm.
big theme and
Yeah.
a big issue.
Mm.
Also, what I would like to see more, for example, I myself, I live in with two flatmates.
Mm.
Will soon move in with one of them.
Mm.
Um, but these kind of different possibilities of living is
Mm.
something that we should discuss more broadly, because it's not an only option to either live in a studio or with your family or with some shared rooms. I would like to see also this kind of building of new spaces where there would be, for example, a big living room
Mm.
for all the tiny studios that we
Yeah.
would have in
Yeah.
one floor, for
Yeah.
example, or one bigger kitchen area. These kind of more communal housing options
Yeah.
as well, and to think about a bit more creatively
Yeah.
on how people can live and support each other
Yeah.
as well in the
Yeah.
same small community level.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So yeah, but that's a very. I think when I see the Helsinki prices, and recently I moved to a studio family apartment in Kuopio, and the rent here, I compare to the rent in Helsinki. That's like almost maybe 100% higher. So
Mm,
I think
yeah,
this agenda is one of the most basic needs of Helsinki city. If there is affordable
yeah,
housing in Helsinki city, of course, this would solve lots of problems for lots of people. Because I think Helsinki is becoming another New York or Melbourne or Sydney, because prices are skyrocketed.
yeah.
One other issue when we talk about accommodation, I've heard from people, and it's not, we cannot generalize it, but there are some instances when talking about the immigrants. For example, if we leave the mortgage, if we are applying for a rental apartment,
Mm,
so what housing companies sometimes do, that there are some areas where they try to give the housing offers to the immigrants in those areas. So those areas becomes famous, that immigrants live there, and the immigrants have less chances to get the housing in the areas where Finnish people or some other people live. So what are your views about this attitude by some housing companies?
that's something that the city surely has power over with the urban planning.
Yeah.
I think that segregation of different areas in Helsinki or in Finland in general, that's a tendency which is already slightly happening, that we need to be very careful with.
Yeah.
Because still, even though if we would talk about the possibility of different cultures to coexist and different communities to coexist, it's not desirable outcome to have different kind of small communities in their own bubble, in a sense. We still want to have people from many backgrounds in many different areas. So one solution for this is to also mix it up with different income groups. To build a bit of fancier apartments in a middle of area which is not so fancy, and the other way around, to build affordable housing in places that are mostly seeing a bit more posh. So really diversifying this kind of landscape with the city planning and with different housing solutions. But also to go beyond that would be to make sure that there are different kind of possibilities for schools and different hobbies to really being spread out all over the city, not just the city center or the city center neighborhoods, but to have like musical high school in Käpylä, or to really like mix it up in a sense where families also don't need to move to the center to get to some special high school class or some special hobbies. So really also mixing with urban planning and different kind of solutions to mixing these kind of areas and the schooling possibilities as well.
All right. Yeah, I think that would be a great step towards inclusivity of the international people as well, because when I talk about the immigrants, like being an immigrant myself, I can say that when we are given an offer to a certain area where most of the immigrants are living, we naturally feel more comfortable there. We shouldn't feel, we should, because we see that, okay, we feel like, okay, it's a small Pakistan where I'm from, or it's a small India, it's a small Bangladesh, which we shouldn't exactly feel like that. We should try, if we are in an international and diverse society, this is a global world now, so we try to interact with people from other backgrounds as well. I think foreigners should also try to the immigrants should also try to change their perspective, that they should also try to find the spaces to live where there are more international people, so they can communicate and learn about different cultures and different languages. So it comes and there comes a responsibility on our shoulders as well. Coming towards the end, I have just two more questions. Accessibility to the information. This is a very key step, and I was when I was watching your Facebook live session video, I remember you discussed about the accessibility to information in Helsinki area, and that those leaflets or those sort of things from the city are going to the to each person home slightly, like they're sliding from your door, so directly at your footstep you're getting the information in different languages, which is very appreciating, I must say. So what are your more what plans do you have more in mind to make accessibility to information more easier and approachable?
I think one of the key things is to have full-on information on the social services. So, for example, with Kela, which offers different kind of supports, financial support for housing, for studying, for you name it. So having this kind of information accessible in multiple different languages. Also, what I would love to see would be some kind of conclusions or like a short description of different activities in the city development, for example. Of course, city politics is not an issue what everyone are interested in, but if you live in a neighborhood and there are some changes that you could have an influence on, that is something that might interest quite many people. If it's something concrete, if it's something that you have an opinion on, whether it be a park which is right next to your apartment, or some future building plans on an empty piece of land. We should have these kind of possibilities to influence also to the city in multiple languages.
Yeah.
What I mostly see in the communication, it is Finnish or Swedish, but we have many different language minorities that are not included in Finnish, Swedish, or even English.
Yeah.
So having kind of making sure that people have a picture of what is happening in the city. And when you know what is happening, you have more motivation also to have your say. And that is very easy way for people to then feel also more welcomed and integrated when they feel that they are listened to and they have the possibility to have their say on different kind of projects happening around the city.
Yeah, exactly. So Milja, last question for you. Since we as an immigrants, we love to see when people like you who are striving for giving more rights to us, who are attempting to make us more inclusive into the Finnish society. So thanks to you, and thanks to all the people who are doing this. I would again urge the people who are listening to this and who belongs to Helsinki City to please go and vote in the city council, because they are the people who can make the decisions that impacts your day-to-day life, and they can if you like someone, please go for them and vote for them. But also one point I was thinking, that what do you think that as a foreigner, should people also play a part in the politics? Do they come and stand up for their rights by coming into the politics and by what they want, so they can make a difference as well? What do you say about that?
I would love to see more people on diversified backgrounds in politics, in local politics, in national level politics. So for sure, it is still possible to also apply to be a candidate in all of the parties. We have few candidates, I think, at least in Vantaa and in these big cities of the south, with people that do not speak Finnish, at least not that fluently. So it is possible even to run without having fluent Finnish. And I think that one important point to actually have different kind of people also voting is to have people as candidates who they feel that would present them, or that would bring on issues that are important to them. Of course, there are a few candidates that are talking about internationality already, but for sure, even going beyond voting, my message would be to go on and be a candidate yourself.
Yeah, and use your rights. If the city, I think that's a very nice step by the Finnish government, that they have given the rights for the immigrants who have been living here for a good enough time to make the changes, to involve in the decision-making process. So when you are given a right, you should use it, and you should be aware of, you should go and vote. So if it's better for all of us for making a good society, and that's how we can contribute. So thanks, Milja, for giving your thoughts on International and Inclusive Helsinki, for giving your thoughts about the integration process, for giving your thoughts about the language, and about how you are planning to strive for us, for immigrants. And thank you so much for everything. And thank you for being in this podcast with us. And thank you. Bye.
Thank you. And my main message is, well, as yours, is to vote. If you have the
Yeah,
right,
vote. Yeah,
vote.
vote.
And I'm happy to receive any questions, any
All right.
thoughts.
Yeah.
So also feel free
Yeah.
to be in contact.
I will share your email and your contacts through in the description of my YouTube channel, and hopefully people who are interested, they will contact you about if they have any questions. So thanks
You're
again,
most
and
welcomed.
yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a great continuation of the week.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.